Tensions are currently running very high at the Russia-Ukraine border. Vladimir Putin has over 100,000 troops stationed there. America has advised its citizens in Ukraine to come back.
Yeah, Americans are right to be concerned about imminent conflict on the Russia-Ukrainian border. Nonetheless, it seems highly unlikely that the Biden administration is going to dispatch troops to that theater. However, it's important to understand that the United States is already part of this conflict. And to understand exactly how, it's worthwhile exploring the origins of this catastrophic chapter in U.S. history known as Russiagate.
So, Lee, I'm sure you've just pricked a lot of people's interest by what you just said, that Russiagate is related to the current tensions between Russia and Ukraine. First of all, could you put Russiagate in a nutshell for us?
Yeah, of course. This was the information operation run through the American media, pushed by intelligence services, namely the FBI, that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin were engaged in a conspiracy of collusion. They'd colluded together that Donald Trump would agree to relieve Ukraine-related sanctions on Russia in exchange for Putin helping him win the White House. So if you understand the Russiagate conspiracy theory, you see clearly that it was actually fundamentally about Ukraine. This was at the center of the entire story. The idea that Trump is going to relieve sanctions on Russia. To understand why that's important, we need to step back a few years to 2013, when protests broke out in Kiev that were referred to as the Euromaidan Revolution. This ended in February 2014, when then the elected leader of Ukraine fled Kiev and went to Moscow. Clearly, he was close to Vladimir Putin. What happened shortly after that shows pretty clearly that the U.S. had a very significant role in what looks less like a revolution and more like a coup. First of all, you probably have heard that famous tape of then State Department official Victoria Nuland speaking with the then U.S. ambassador to Ukraine about helping to shape and form the new Ukrainian government. Here's the clip of Nuland and the U.S. ambassador Jeffrey Pyatt discussing installing the new Ukrainian Prime Minister, Arseniy Yatsenyuk.
Good. So I don't think Klitsch should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you think, what, in terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. You know, I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
After the Ukrainian official, Viktor Yanukovych, the Ukrainian leader, leaves Kiev and goes to Moscow, then we start seeing the visits of numerous senior Obama officials. For instance, John Brennan comes in the second week of April. And that almost appears as though Brennan was taking a victory lap for the CIA's role in the coup. And certainly a lot of people in that region, that's how they saw it. The fact that Brennan was there was almost an admission of CIA responsibility for pushing out the Ukrainian leader. After that, the next person who shows up about a week after Brennan is the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden. And it's Joe Biden who winds up running Ukraine policy on behalf of the Obama administration.
And I imagine that Vladimir Putin is watching these events unfold. What do you think is going through his head at this time?
I think he's clearly concerned. He understands that Ukraine has been used as an instrument by destabilizing Ukraine and by putting in their preferred candidates, the Obama administration is looking to use Ukraine as an instrument to destabilize Russia. So clearly Putin is concerned. But there's other things they're looking at too, right? When Biden comes in, a month after Biden visits Kiev in 2014, his son Hunter Biden is named to the board of a Ukrainian energy company. Now, clearly, he wasn't hired because of his expertise on natural gas exploration and drilling. The reason he was hired appears to be that he was offering protection. The reason that they paid for Hunter Biden was to buy protection from the most powerful man they could get in the United States government, the vice president and the man in charge of Ukraine policy, Joe Biden.
Now, I understand there's a history between America and Russia, a long-standing adversarial relationship there. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering in all of this, why Russia was made the aggressor. Why not another country? Why not China, for example? Because China, for a long time, has obviously been a threat to the U.S., intellectual property theft, its penetration of U.S. institutions. Why make Russia the hostile factor in this?
Well, interesting. I mean, let's take it out of this particular moment and put it in a larger context. It really does go back to Cold War thinking, and really, insofar as we've thought of, it used to be the Soviet Union and a communist power. So I think that we really are, in lots of ways, looking at it through a Cold War lens, and that's one of the reasons why NATO is still around. There's a lot of debate over that, and we, of course, remember Donald Trump's issues with NATO. I'm not saying that Vladimir Putin is not the aggressor here. I just think, again, insofar as we're talking about history and what we need to understand to see this more clearly, we need to understand that lots of people in Washington, it's hard for them to break old habits, and they're going to see this in a Cold War lens. And of course, Russia is not the former Soviet Union.
What is it about Ukraine, the dynamics between the Biden, the Obama administration at that time, and Ukraine that made Ukraine a viable partner in this effort in Russiagate?
Well, I mean, first we have to go back and really sort of understand, again, how the United States, typically, not just Democrats and not just the Obama administration, this happened during the Trump years as well. Many American officials, foreign policy officials, see Ukraine as an easy and inexpensive way to contest the Russians in their own region of influence. So that's one thing that the Obama team saw, and that's certainly one thing that Joe Biden saw when he was vice president. So again, let's just step back for a second and see this through the eyes of Russian officials, especially Vladimir Putin, because this will come back later and this will help us understand some of the things that Putin is looking at right now, and part of the reason why those troops may be massed on Ukraine's border.
What you're describing here is quite a revelation to me. I'm sure it's also a revelation to many of our audience members that the actions of the Obama government had such an influence on the current tensions between Ukraine and Russia.